Welcome to the Culture Cafe.
Arts and culture.
With added chip spice.
It was one hell of a party. A festival every month, maybe 2 or 3 if we wanted to spoil ourselves.
We had special commissions in art, music and drama from some of the biggest names.
Public events attended by thousands. Some people attending a major cultural event for the first time.
Endless surprises, from massive bits of engineering plonked down in Victoria Square to the battle of the artificial flowers. Were you a poppy fan or a daffodilian?
The BBC were never far away from the place, along with most of the real press. Even some of the pretend press showed their face briefly.
But the biggest stars of the show were the people of Hull. We made the City of Culture our City of Culture, turning up to every event en masse, even the ropey ones.
But we didn't just cheer from the sidelines. The volunteers transformed welcoming and marshalling into an art form.
Or maybe an Olympic sport. They were dressed in tracksuits.
And it wasn't all the culture company. Plenty of local artists and organisations rose to the challenge.
Even if their efforts often went unacknowledged.
We made a collective effort to become a northern cultural powerhouse and to lead by example.
Winning the City of Culture 5 years ago made Hull a national joke, but we had the last laugh.
Hundreds of events and thousands of visitors later, we are definitely on the cultural map, but this is where the hard work starts.
Maintaining the momentum, holding on to the legacy, keeping our place on the map. We've dug into our YouTube archives to hear what people were saying about the culture and the City of Culture from as far back as 2014. Here's what we found.
Well, it's a lovely city, and now it's getting well known. People from outside will want to come.
City of Culture, do you think we deserve it?
Yeah, I do. In fact, I just did an Instagram post saying that. I've just been walking around the old town and the museums quarter and stayed near the marina and saw the Deep and I had no idea, to be honest, what it was going to be like and it's really, overwhelmed me, so yes.
And a city with a poetic tradition and a poetic culture.
Yeah, which is not something we're sort of told about either, I would say, in our schooling down south, I don't think, really.
Yes.
In 2017, Hull becomes City of Culture. The roadworks have already begun, but what does culture mean to Hull? What does culture mean to you?
What does the City of Culture mean to you?
More opportunities because obviously we are both quite arty people.
It's going to be a programme of great events for 2017, but hopefully it'll leave a legacy of everything being just a little bit bigger and a little bit better and a little bit more going on.
Culture? Well, culture is the way we do things around here.
What is culture? Diversity. I don't know.
Different races of people.
Okay. Yeah.
Mingling with everyone.
Hull's always had a little bit of a bad reputation before. How do you think City of Culture has changed their reputation?
I think it's just a fantastic thing for the city. It's full of culture and music and art, and I think it'll really bring it to the light.
To me, it's all about sort of embracing your heritage of the areas in various art forms, of whichever way you kind of perceive it, whether it be painting or photography or writing songs, etc., things like that.
Hull's got a really good community. Lots of people come together, work together.
How do you think the citizens of Hull feel?
I think they're feeling the buzz, just like we're feeling it in the Guildhall.
Culture means a lot of things. It can mean art, music, film, theatre. It's all what people create, isn't it? Like what you make culture. You don't just find it in the street.
Tell the people that don't live in Hull why they should come to Hull for City of Culture.
Everyone should come to Hull for the City of Culture because we're amazing.
Because we're amazing.
The world are going to see it, they're going to know it, and it is starting now, so thank you so much. We are Hull, we are the City of Culture.
I don't think anybody knew what to expect in 2017. Were they right?
Whoa. I felt a bit confused by the whole concept of a City of Culture, really. Before we had our Year of Culture, I expected possibly more Hull in it, really. I did think it's about, you go to this city, and you discover what that city's about and what culture is there, rather than a lump of culture that's been dumped like from a squeezy bag around the country. Do you see what I mean? And I think it is more of the latter rather than the former now, after experience our own
You feel like we
city
just had a
culture.
lot of other cultures dumped on us?
Probably dumped in the best way to use. Because
Sorry,
it was really
splatted on like
brilliant, a
mashed
lot of it,
potato.
yeah. But yeah, I didn't know how much it was going to draw out our own culture, and that's what I expected to happen more, really.
I felt as though our own culture got drawn out really well.
I thought it got drawn out too much.
Really, right.
Whoa.
See, I suppose I'm
controversy.
thinking of the main things that I saw, and I suppose I'm always thinking how much they involved Hull artists, really, you know. And the main major events, I mean, the skin exhibition, for instance, you know, the skin, I mean, all them people in Hull who were blue were Hull people, but they weren't artists from Hull. I suppose some of them were by chance.
No.
Yes.
You know, I don't know how much it has to, I don't know how much a city of culture has to be about that, and how much, you know, it's possibly always a mix. But I don't know.
I suppose like one of the highlights for me of everything that happened last year was the Land of Green Ginger thing that happened in East Park. I thought it was amazing, and I know it might seem like a strange thing to pick out, but that was totally focused on Hull culture, Hull stories, and it was organised in the main by Hull people.
Yeah, it's interesting because we went to that as a group, and a few of us from the show, and the people representing it seemed to be keen on being independent of the City of Culture, even though it happened to take part in that year.
So hang on, it wasn't a sanctioned City of Culture event?
I don't...
It was.
It was. Right, well, when we spoke to the organisers, they were keen to represent an independence from the City of Culture. I'm sure that happened, yeah.
I think a lot of people involved were involved independently and brought on. I had a small, very tiny part to play. I was asked to play a small part in that independently, right. So only via social media, you know. But yeah, and they pulled different people in for various reasons, and you know, made them a little bit part of it.
Yeah, maybe they were hoping to carry on their own legacy independently later on.
I think they were a pre-existing organisation, weren't they? And no doubt they'll continue to do stuff afterwards, hopefully.
Yeah, like everyone is after the City Culture. So the momentum is, you know, it's speeding along.
I think the thing is, for me all along, the idea was, okay, it involved flavours of Hull. Some people can argue that it should have involved more of, you know, our own culture, this, that and the other. But for me, the point always was to introduce culture to Hull from other parts of the country and the world, for it to build that momentum, for that we go, well, we've seen this now, we can take that and make this our own in the years to come.
Yeah, I suppose there is a phenomenon whereby when you see a lot of really high quality culture, which you wouldn't normally see in a city like Hull, then that feeds into the artists that are already there and influences them and maybe lifts their game up a little bit.
I think so, and I think that's been a really important part, and getting to meet these artists that have come in from other areas of the country and other countries, and being able to experience what they're bringing to the table, especially as an artist, getting to chat with them and find out how they do things, network with them a bit. I know it's network,
no, but it's true.
It is a massive, I've found it to be a massive thing, and I was quite new to all this culture business anyway prior to 2017, so maybe for me it's been a steeper curve, but I think definitely that's been a really important feature of last year.
It'll be interesting to see what the influence is of all this extra high quality art and drama and things, and how much it will carry on.
Yeah, trying to make sense of it all and where it fits into our culture.
I think deep down I expected one or two Hull superstars to smash into the art world and become international, and I don't know if that's what other City of Cultures expect, but it doesn't happen, I suppose.
You see, I think there's still potential for that to happen. I can't see any reason. I think if you're an artist and you've been surrounded by all this, I don't think it's the type of thing that happens overnight. I think it's but I reckon in the next 5 years, you'll see people emerging who've had experiences in the last year that have really helped to form them.
Join us after the break. We'll take an in-depth look at what our cousins across the water made of their year of cultural spotlight.
Welcome back to the Culture Cafe, where we're looking back at the party to end all parties.
Let's hope not. I want it to be the party to begin all parties.
It gives me great pleasure to say that the UK City of Culture is actually a European idea. It's based on the European Capital of Culture scheme, which started back in the 1980s.
It was a major factor in Liverpool's cultural and economic revival, which is why the UK decided to create their own mini version.
Back in 2015, we visited Mons as they came to the end of their year of Capital of Culture. One of the most interesting interviews we did was with their Deputy Artistic Director, Marie Noble.
It was far too long to fit into the film we made about Mons, so here is an extended and in-depth version of that conversation.
I'm here with the Deputy Art Director of Mons 2015, Marie Noble. Now, the first question I've got to ask you is, why did Mons want to become a European Capital of Culture?
You have to get back to the year 2000. It was a strong will for the city to find a new project for the city. You know, it's a region that suffered a lot, high rate of unemployment. It was because of the closing of the mine coal industry. It was a city that lost pride, and the mayor, the whole city hall really wanted to find a project for the city towards 2015 or 2020. And when they gathered to think about this project, they realized that it was the turn of Belgium to have a European Capital of Culture for 2015.
How has being Capital of Culture changed the cultural life for the people that live in Mons?
I think that we had, before Mons 2015, we had, let's say, more classical cultural events. What I mean is we were, of course, having theatre plays in theatre, we're having dance, performances, exhibition, but that kind of thing that you can find somehow everywhere. And but the new dimensions that gave the European Capital of Culture program was the fact that we were very much in the streets. We were, and we worked transversally. So it was not only an event around theatre, but it was always something with dance, with performances in the street, with the people. Participation was very important.
As well as connecting with people digitally and working within the region, you seem to have brought in other cities that are close to Mons, but not that close. So Brussels has an involvement, Bruges has an involvement, Lille, which is not even in Belgium, has an involvement. Is there some kind of future power, kind of cultural powerhouse that you're trying to create on the back of on the back of the Capital of Culture?
Well, that was the aim for the year. Yeah. I mean, we really wanted to say to people that, of course, it's Mons that has the title. Mons is European Capital of Culture. But we realized that so many people from Belgium don't actually know Belgium very well. I mean, you're from Brussels, you go easily to Paris, you go to Köln, you go to London for an exhibition. It's very easy because it's quite easy to commute. But then you don't actually know that there's something excellent happening in your neighbor city. And we really wanted to create this sort of circulation of people. That was the aim of 2015. And this is why we had one project in each big city, not only in Belgium, you said also in the north of France, because we're very close to north of France and we have a very strong connection with Lille.
And do you think that being Capital of Culture has changed not just the view of what people think about the city of Mons, I'm thinking about the people of Mons, has it changed their outlook?
I would say that before the opening, we had this big opening on the 24th of January, big event. Before that, we didn't say much because that was our communication strategy. And so there was a big expectation, but also people were sort of reluctant, saying, why Mons, why here? Why are we spending so much money on culture? There is more important things. That was what we heard a lot before. And then we had this opening with 100,000 people in the streets, suddenly. I mean, there was just big effect. And the messages we get from then on, they're completely different. People are, I mean, I was telling you about the fact that the pride was sort of lost before. It was really sort of restoration of the pride. People are proud of being European Capital of Culture, and proud of being sort of center of something. And when you're proud, you're more open, and they really want to. I mean, there are plenty of projects that we have to stop because our mission ends. And the people, we keep on doing this project without us. And that's the best proof that it has changed something.
And the view of the rest of the world of Mons, has that changed through being a European Capital of Culture?
I'm not sure I can say the world, but definitely Europe. We're on the map.
And finally, I could ask you about Mons next year, but I'm sure you can envisage what Mons is going to look like in a year's time. What about in 10 years' time? How do you think Mons will have changed because of Capital of Culture in 2025?
Hard to say, really. The only thing I can tell you now is that we're working for the future, and we are going to organize a small Mons 2015 every second year. And the goal is towards 2025. So it's really important to be able to indeed gather in 2025 and to see what's left and what has worked. On the long term, it's hard to say what are the effects, but we're working on that. Legacy is very important, and otherwise it's just a sort of happening of a year that has no sense.
In that case, I'm looking forward to 2025.
Yeah, let's meet then.
Let's meet then, yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So, they had loads more money than us, but did we get just as much out of our cultural year?
I think it's early days yet, really.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, Richard. I think there's some interesting parallels between Mons and Hull. You know, a city that's lost a key industry and then had to build up from that. And I know we're aiming more towards tourism, and a lot of people have come here and become aware that Hull has a lot more to offer than they expected after, you know, building up from the loss of our fishing industry, which everyone knows Hull for more than anything else, I suppose.
Do you think it's changed perspectives externally? Because we live here, it's hard to tell, but how do you feel externally?
I think if you look at the newspaper stories that have been written about Hull over the last year, I think, you know, if they're going to have any effect whatsoever, it can only be a positive effect. It can only be viewing Hull as a more cultural place to visit.
Bumper cars.
Maybe not them so much. But, you know, there's been a lot of positive stuff written about Hull, even like the fact that it's gone from one of the 10 crappiest places to live in the UK to being in some of the places that you need to visit. But in addition to that, the cultural stuff that's been written up in newspapers like The Guardian and stuff has been great for Hull, hasn't it? It's got to be, surely.
And also it's interesting what you said about these top 10, these types of little surveys that come out now and again, because there was something about Humber Street and a lot of the new residential areas around there being way oversubscribed, and that's why they want to develop the area more. And Humber Street's one of the top 6 places to live in the country now, apparently. So I've gone from one extreme to the other.
Old Town was voted number 8 in the hippest and coolest place to hang out in the country, apparently.
Right, yeah, so...
Not bad, is it?
It's not too bad, is it, really?
Certainly, hip and cool is a massive improvement on what would it have been?
Let's not dwell on what it would have been. Let's focus on the future.
What some people would have it be still, if the sun is anything to go by, maybe, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, whether kind of that upsurge from the press was, I hate to say it, but was some of it a bit contrived as part of the City of Culture year? How will that continue now?
It probably was contrived to some extent, but I mean, if that's the case, then we're going to have another 4 years, is it another 3 years of it?
3 years, yeah,
hopefully.
So we hand over to Coventry.
Yeah, if it's going to work in the same way. And whether it's been contrived or not, I think the drip, drip, drip effect of that happening over the course of 1 year or 4, whatever it turns out to be, is going to be massive, I think.
Certainly around the city centre, there's been a lot of people who've visited Hull and been pleasantly surprised and found that there's a lot to do.
Yeah,
a lot
the
of interesting
pleasantly
things going.
surprised is one you hear quite a lot from people. Pride. I mean, she mentioned pride. I mean, that's something that one of the biggest things and something you can see straight away. So immediately, almost at the beginning of City of Culture, was people suddenly have a pride in coming from Hull now.
Yeah. And for me, that's one of the most important things, I think, because like I grew up feeling a bit detached from events that happened in other parts of the country, from big events in general. It wasn't something that I personally experienced as happening in our city. So for kids growing up now, not just kids but adults as well, to feel that connection to kind of the wider country and the wider cultural landscape is a massive thing, I think.
Yeah, and it adds to our aspirations really, I think, yeah. So do we need an arts centre in Hull? Have we discovered that we can put the show on anywhere?
Join us after the break. We'll be giving you a definite maybe.
Welcome back to the Culture Cafe. Believe it or not, Hull doesn't have a monopoly on culture, even after last year.
Over on the South Bank, there's a venue that's become a haven for artists and art lovers, and I popped over the bridge to find out what it was all about. Barton has been a hub for North Lincolnshire's cultural tourism industry since before 2017 was just a twinkle in Hull City Council's eye. And the main venue for this has ties to a much older industry. The rope walk began life as a rope factory, making rope for Hull's fishing fleet and eventually for the rest of the world. By the time the factory closed in 1989, it had been making rope and twine on this site for over 200 years. After standing empty for several years, a group of artists had the idea that it would make an ideal venue for the arts and a home for artists. With hard work and imagination, they transformed a good idea into an award-winning arts centre. I've come here today to find out how the arts can find their permanent and defining place within a town. There are two art galleries here, and if you're lucky, you'll get the chance to come to an opening and meet some of the artists. Artists from across the region show their work in the galleries, and as always, attending an opening is a great way to meet local artists. I spoke to Jo Sloan about how she came to be exhibiting at the Rope Walk.
Because you have to be selected, you know, they don't just have anybody. Yeah. And of course there was a 2.5 year waiting list.
Right, yeah.
So we've waited sort of 2.5 years to, you know, for it to happen. People that have seen it before, they're not going to buy it, are they?
The Rope Walk isn't just a place to show art. There are fully serviced studios for artists, crafters and creative businesses. Jane White runs a couture business as well as giving classes. I asked her why she decided to set up shop here.
It's a fantastic venue, and it meant, having run a business out of village halls and my spare room, that I could have a permanent workspace and I could really build the business, which I've done in the 4 years that I've been here. Facilities are great. It's my space to do what I need to do for the business with it. We get a great amount of support from the Rope Walk itself, and travelling wise for the ladies that come, it's in a great position because it's straight off the motorway system, and I get students not just from Barton and locally and Hullen area and East Yorkshire, but from all over the country, far down south as South Coast, Perth in Scotland. Right. And it's a really easy venue for them to get to, and everything's on site. They've got the cafe facilities.
Liz Bennett is one of those artists who set up the Arts Centre. I met up with her in the cafe as they were tidying up after another busy day.
Myself and my partner Richard and a friend Tim Needham set the Art Centre up over 17 years ago. So we took the building on as a derelict shed in August 1999 and opened the doors to the public on the 14th of April 2000. Right. So it was our 17th birthday yesterday.
Wow, excellent.
Yeah.
So before that, it'd just been a factory for rope making.
Yeah, it was a rope making factory factory. It closed as a working factory in 1989, laying off 140 workers, and then it lay dormant for 10 years until we took it on.
Right.
And we now have 39 people work here, but with all the other people that work in Tesco's and in the CV Day Spa, there's more people work on the site now than there were laid off in 1989.
The Ropewalk is a jewel of the local creative scene. It's a live venue hosting music, cinema and performance. There are regular workshops. It's a space for artists to run their business. It has a cafe renowned for its food, especially the cakes. And of course, it has not one, but two oversubscribed art galleries. The rope making industry may be consigned to a museum, but this distinctive building certainly doesn't stand idle. When Hall's Bar and Ropery closed in 1989, 140 people lost their jobs. But now, thanks to the innovative thinking of 3 artists, the place is now a flourishing arts venue and live art space. And it just goes to show you what a bunch of artists can do when they put their minds together.
Hull hasn't had an arts centre for about 20 years. Do you think we need one, or one like that?
Well, I would have an arts centre on every street corner and get rid of all the armament spending we've got and just inundate the whole country with loads of arts centres. So, yeah, I think we can never have too much art.
But what kind? I mean, that seems, I don't know, would that work in Hull? One that was like the one in Barton?
It's happening in parts, isn't it? You know, I think the Ropewalk has got lots of different elements to it which are all together in one place. And I suppose in Hull we've got those elements, but spread out a little bit more, you know, like Ground.
Coffee shops.
Yeah, Ground hasn't got the coffee element. I suppose that's it, the cakes and the coffee are the essential bit.
I suppose there's galleries and lots of different things going on all over the place, isn't there? But I suppose as well there's a case to be made for having it all in one place because people know where to go. If you don't know the art scene and you don't know exactly what's going on and you're sort of on the outside of it, it can be difficult to find your way to the places where stuff's actually happening.
How would it become self-sustaining? How would we fund it in Hull? Would people come and buy the arts? Obviously, I assume they're doing
the
Ropewalk.
Because the Ropewalk covers that many different, it ticks that many different boxes. You know, they have gigs there, comedians and other sort of live performance, and then they have an art gallery and a craft shop and a cafe. So like you say, it's all that in one hub. Is something probably,
Hub, that
we
word.
could have, we need hub. We need Art Centre hub.
But I think that would definitely be the way to go. I think you'd have to come at it where you had a lot of different income streams coming in from different stuff like gigs and a cafe and people selling their work and renting out space and things like that. I think it's certainly viable. We've had this conversation a lot, haven't we, Rich?
It's attracting the people that spend the money, I suppose, in a way, and hopefully after the City of Culture year, we can do that now, you know.
You would hope so, wouldn't you? If there's ever a time we can do it, surely it's now.
Yeah. Get them going, get the nighttime economy going as well.
Yeah, and I suppose there's that sort of craft element where you can buy gifts at the Ropewalk as well, which is maybe something we haven't got as much, I don't know. You can buy prints and things like that, kind of cards, prints of people's art. I don't know how much of the ceramics part of it you can buy as much.
I do think it would be good to have a specific place that you could go and see people, because I think it is out there. It's just, again,
like
difficult to find it.
Working in the place and working out of the place.
Yeah.
Is there a need for that among artists? Do they want studio space?
Again, I think affordable art space is something that there is a demand for, definitely. I know art groups that I'm associated with myself have waiting lists, and people are just waiting on them forever. So
really?
Yeah,
So
months and months and years.
Then?
I myself waited 2.5 years for the art space I've got.
Yeah.
You know. So
I also think there's a case to be made for artists gathering in a certain place, because being an artist can be quite a solitary kind of a pursuit, can't it? I've got this idealistic vision of everybody sort of having a cup of coffee together while they're having a break.
The ideas mix.
Brilliant. So why haven't got one in Hull then?
It does seem like we can make art happen anywhere. Bob visited somewhere that may have seemed unexpected a year ago, but seems perfect now.
One Whitsuntide in the mid-1950s, Philip Larkin cut a train from here in Hull's Paragon Station. That journey inspired a poem that made his reputation. Railways and railway stations have always inspired artists and artworks. They are a place of nostalgia and change, transit and transformation, of beginnings and endings. But Paragon Station isn't just inspiring art. It's become a place where art is performed, discovered and displayed. For any visitor to Hull passing through the transport interchange, there is one unmistakable contribution the station is making to the City of Culture. For obvious reasons, this is one of the main distribution points for information about the year's events. But this isn't just a place to find out about art, it is a place to discover art too. This piano first arrived as an accompaniment to a dance event, but very soon never left. The piano set up home here after 10-Foot Dance Company spent the day performing a dance piece that was given special resonance by being performed here in the station. What is surprising about this flourishing of art in the station isn't that it is happening now, but that it hasn't been done before. Yes, there have been the occasional exhibitions or events in the station before, but never to this scale or with this commitment to the City of Culture and Hull's culture. And yet it is a natural home for art. It is a public space, a place that can be visited or passed through several times a week for many of us. What better place to bring the people to art and art to the people? When Hull was awarded the City of Culture 2017, I'm sure there were many who literally thought it was a joke. But this proves why it was the right decision. We are building culture into the daily fabric of our lives.
Welcome back to the Culture Cafe. Can art change the world? Maybe. An artist can definitely change a neighbourhood.
The story of the London art scene is as much about postcodes as the arts that are in it. It's happening here with the fruit market as it moves from an arts ghetto to an arts quarter.
We visited London last summer to see what the arts can really do for an area.
What impact does art have on the community? I'm not talking about public art, the stuff we eventually stop noticing, but real social and environmental impact. We've come to London, where the arts community has the most typical impact. It moves into a run-down area, makes it fashionable and cool, and then discovers that they've been the shock troops for the estate agents. Suddenly, only the rich kids can afford the rent. They've got to move on to somewhere new. This was once a run-down East End borough, a perfect environment for starving artists looking for cheap space. On the surface, it hasn't changed until you look in the shop windows, and you'll find unnecessary fripperies at prices that are truly eye-watering. Just tell us about what it was like in the early days, at the beginning of the artists and the cool people moving into the area.
So at that point, this whole area was pretty run down, and then obviously it had all the local community living here, which is very Turkish, and there was one club, which was the Bass Clef, which was the jazz club, which had been there since the 60s. And very quickly the area started to build up, and so all those big spaces, warehouse spaces, young graphic designers and artists and makers cottoned onto it and got into those buildings. And then over the time they then been pushed out as well, because the rents have gone up and the landlords realised that they had a gold mine on their hands.
And so all those artists and all those people that made this area what it is now,
yeah,
probably against their own will and get their own understanding, where did they end up moving on to?
Hackney, Walthamstow.
Walthamstow is an interesting and welcome alternative to inner city gentrification. Wood Street Walls, a local community arts group, has facilitated and commissioned a series of murals. They've transformed the area, bringing art to the public domain. This isn't a couple of graffiti walls considered by the local authority. The quality of the work and the range of styles makes it a destination art trail. My guide is Lisa Tang, whose groundbreaking work in King's Cross makes her the perfect person to explain how art and artists can transform a community.
Can art and artists change a neighborhood? I think this is a very good example of artists changing this neighborhood. It is a lovely neighborhood in the first place, but the thing that they've started, this artist collective, and getting them all to participate, and especially the local community to participate in all this art. Yes, you know, it's got international artists here, but also very local artists.
Which is the most important for a neighbourhood to have? Is it the commercial side, or is it the creative and artistic side?
Well, it's all interwoven. So obviously, by putting all this community-led art, you're going to get people like us who's not from this area coming down to have a look. So that's obviously going to, you know, have an economic benefit, more footfall, everybody, and pretty soon they're going to have tours around here, so that will bring in even more people. And the social aspect, so it's a place where people feel like they can hang out and socialize. And then the cultural, obviously, is just, it really ups the game.
Back to central London and Brick Lane. This area somehow manages to come to terms with the hipster culture. You can spend your money on a bowl of Rice Krispies here in the questionably ironic serial killer cafe. I've headed back to the inner city to meet with a friend, writer and musician Kat Martindale. As a teenager, she found her own neighbourhood was becoming increasingly unfamiliar, as Notting Hill transformed from solid working class to unapologetically middle class.
It's disorientating. I think it can feel like you're being excluded. And I guess you kind of take it, like people take it in different ways. I decided to write about it. I think if you didn't have the outlet of being able to write about it, it would be even harder, because you wouldn't get kind of to tell people about it and to get that feedback and meet other people who perhaps have had the same experience or who agree that it's it can be scary. And I think it really depends what kind of economic background you're coming from. I think if, like, so I grew up near Notting Hill, and that happened to me when I was growing up, and it was like I felt excluded whilst also being given the opportunity to see how the other half live. And so it's that kind of double-edged sword where you're like, I know I'm not them, and I know my friends and family aren't like that, but equally I now know that that does exist and it's really quite close to me, and so what prospects are there for me that I might like to explore?
Artists and the art they create can bring a lot to a community. They're happy to make use of the areas that the commercial sector can't. They can make a place not only cool, but pleasant, and they can breathe life into those dead spaces of a city. But art is not enough to revitalise or sustain a place. It needs money, jobs, support networks. We need commerce to give a city a heart. We need art to give a city a soul.
Do you think that Humber Street and that area is in danger of being gentrified, or is being gentrified?
Yeah, I think there's a slight danger of that. Yeah, if it hasn't happened already.
I think
it's attracted affluence, I suppose.
I think the house prices, like those new houses that they're building down there, are certainly pricey, aren't they?
I believe they are,
Yeah, some of the priciest in Hull, I think, for what you're getting. And also, like, the rental properties on the marina and stuff really went up last year, and I think they've stayed up sort of by association with Humber Street and the old town, I think, as well, haven't they?
I mean, the thing about Humber Street is, they call it a cultural quarter, or, you know, and all that, but really it's a bit contrived, isn't it, there? Because it is a development. It is a naturally, like in Shoreditch, it naturally developed through artists going there. But that was Humber Street's a bit contrived. contrived, really.
I don't think it was originally, was it? I think they've built on what was already there. I suppose in some ways it is contrived. Now it's become more contrived, but there was an existing sort of art scene there before that happened, wasn't there?
With the development of the sesh and the live events and the other things that go on around the marina itself.
Yeah.
I think it's inevitable it was going to happen somewhere around there, somewhere around the dock.
What about Bankside? Because that's the next area, isn't it? In Hull now.
I'd love to see something happening there. The buildings are amazing on Bankside, aren't they? I'd love to
seems
see
more
them being
appropriate
used.
to a kind of an artist's quarter.
Well, I've got to confess a vested interest because I've got an art space near there and I don't want it to go peak price.
There's actually, the chocolate factory's been there for years, hasn't it? Which houses like recording studios and photography studios and stuff like that.
They're very creative down there, aren't they? The graffiti lot.
Is the chocolate factory near the Bay Horse pub? That one just there? Is that the chocolate?
know.
I know
It's
there's
a
a big
little
warehouse
further
where there's a
down,
lot
I
of
think.
artists.
Yeah, it's just a massive warehouse. Yeah, it's been there for a long time, I think. And then you've got obviously what's the place called where they have the big raves? Gate number 5.
Gate 5, yeah,
That's
Gate
there.
5 further up on Bankside, not Wincoln Lee.
I'll say then, the Kingston Art Group has its own Barmston Street Annex, which is about 25 studios there. But there's no public face to that, it's just artist studios. But I'm sure we could walk around with our berets on and do a little walk around the block and direct people to the Banksy.
I was going to say, we've got a Banksy down there as well now, haven't they?
Allegedly another one as well, aren't
There's
we?
a few allegedlys.
Unless you did it, Richard.
No, you want me.
Rich, what was your new
was
name for
accused of it.
Bankside now?
Bankside is what people are calling it.
Right. Oh, yeah,
Now
that
it's
works.
got a Banksy.
The thing is, it's, to be pedantic, isn't it? That's Wincoln Lee, where the Banksy is, not Bankside.
I just class it all as the same sort of area, though, don't you?
I think people are now. It's just that is now going to be called,
I like the idea of
street art quarter.
Yeah, I like the idea of street art being on the walls and things, and then that attracts people, which will attract more like food venues and things, I suppose. So.
A coffee shop rather than the greasy spoon cafe at the micro firms.
It'd be nice to have more coffee shops around there. I've got to say, more cafes and a wider range of those.
There's some lovely pubs there, though, already, isn't there? Like the Whalebone.
Brilliant.
Lovely pub. That's a great place
It's a
to
shame
be.
Bay Horse is closed. I think that's been turned into apartments. So
What I
we've lost
found
one.
interesting is how far they're going to allow the artistic freedom of people putting stuff on the walls.
Yeah. I know. Now that they've let the Banksy
Well, they've just
start.
made the Ashcroft wall, which is near Wilmington Bridge. That's always had graffiti on it. That's just become a legal wall.
So there's potential then.
There
It could
is.
be happening
Yeah,
anytime soon.
I know. It's
Let's
going to be
look forward
fantastic.
to it.
Well, it's time to close the shutters on the Culture Cafe once more.
But before we go, we'd like to leave you with one last thought.
We're not in 2017 anymore, and one thing's for sure, 2018
It's not going to be anything like
2016.